Summer is upon us, the open road stretches out before us. How about a road trip? Maybe watch these horror movies first. I'm Tilly from What Culture Horror, and these are the 10 best road trip horror movies. Number 10. Riding the Bullet. Stephen King is the master of taking a normal everyday experience and turning it into pure nightmare fuel, which is exactly why this movie works. Based off the novella of the same name, it takes the simple concept of heading to see a loved one and it turns into a dark examination of all things surrounding death. Riding the Bullet follows Alan Parker, a young artist who learns that his mother has suffered a stroke and decides to hitchhike his way to her. However, along the way, he's picked up by a man harbouring a deadly secret. Being a hitchhiker must be terrifying, as you completely put your trust in strangers, and this movie takes that fear to another level. Parker ends up riding with a man named George Staub, whose gravestone he had just seen at a cemetery. If riding alongside a dead man wasn't enough, it becomes worse as you learn this chance encounter hasn't happened by mistake. The film's general focus on the theme of death makes this an incredibly macabre movie, and it is captured in the chilling atmosphere. The lighting is dark, the blue-coloured tones are bone-chilling, and the focus on cemeteries and graves make the whole flick uncomfortable and creepy. Number 9. DETOUR. This Norwegian horror film, of which the original title I would try and pronounce, but I know I will mess it up, so I'm not going to do that and upset Norwegian people and anyone listening by the assault on the ears that would be. But basically the movie is a look at how a minor change in plan can result in a whole host of unprecedented and unplanned consequences. It takes you on a journey of twists and turns, morphing the simple setup into a horrifying examination of human curiosities and violence. DETOUR follows a married couple driving back to Norway who get stopped by a police officer and instructed to take a detour into a dark forest. Whilst on this road, they end up stranded, becoming suspicious of an ill-tempered local and even discovering a traumatised young woman in the woods. Soon the real reason they've been sent down this dark and twisted route becomes clear. It's revealed that all of these events are being live-streamed as part of a snuff film. The movie is terrifying thanks to many aspects, with one of the most prevalent being the leading performances. They take you on a rollercoaster ride as you quickly fall for their chemistry as a couple, only to see the gradual descent into chaos and violence cause them to become both strained and terrified. Additionally, the focus on live streaming makes the film feel ahead of its time, as the exploration of the dark web and the sick pleasures of anonymous internet users is a scathing look at what you can find online. Number 8. Jeepers Creepers. Jeepers Creepers follows Trish and Darry, a pair of siblings who are driving home for vacation. What should be a standard and pleasant affair is turned into a terrifying fight for survival as they are hunted down by a demonic flesh-eating creature known as the Creeper. The movie combines the slasher and creature feature genres perfectly, as the horrifying beastie has all the typical traits of a slasher villain and gains a host of abilities such as flight, inhuman strength, regeneration, and the ability to smell fear. His presence is genuinely terrifying, and the character is brought to life with a thoroughly exciting design and fantastic practical effects. Sadly, the terrifying opening doesn't quite match up to the rest of the movie as it falls prey to cliches. However, the creature design is enough to keep you hooked throughout the somewhat questionable remainder of the film. Encountering a stranger on the open road is often a cause for anxiety. Still, the idea of becoming prey to a relentless monster is even more of a reason to consider flying instead, despite the environmental concerns. Number 7. Dead End. Part of what makes this film so intriguing is that it's actually a Christmas movie, taking place on Christmas Eve. But it's not really one you want to snuggle up with your family and watch by the fire. Not really that kind of movie. The movie follows a family who are travelling home to the father's in-laws to celebrate the holidays. On this trip, the father decides to take a shortcut, but this proves to be a fatal mistake, as they encounter a mysterious hitchhiker who begins a host of supernatural encounters, including an ominous hearse, mutilated bodies, and the one-by-one deaths of each family member. Dead End is a thoroughly bizarre title that meshes some truly horrifying scares with funny and awkward interactions as the family bicker and argue. The gradual descent into chaos becomes a vessel for their flaws to become exposed, and the true entertainment comes from seeing them unravel. Additionally, the deaths are handled so well, as instead of overindulging, the movie chooses to give you slight glimpses of gore and leaves the rest to your imagination. This makes the film feel a lot more real, as it focuses on the characters rather than outlandish and ridiculous depictions of violence. Number 6. Wolf Creek. When it comes to thinking of wide open landscapes with nowhere to run or hide, the Australian outback springs to mind. This land is expansive and inescapable, making this film and the true events that inspired it all the more horrendous. The film centres on a group of 3 backpackers who are travelling across the Australian outback. Whilst on this journey, they encounter an eccentric stranger who helps them out when they need assistance. But soon he reveals his true nature as psychopathic and xenophobic and unleashes his sadistic desires upon these poor people. There was a lot of ambiguity prior to the movie's release as it claimed to be based on a true story. However, the events themselves are inspired by 2 unconnected backpack killers named Ivan Milat and Bradley Murdoch. This real-life connection is brought to the forefront through the use of realistic and visceral violence. Wolf Creek presents you with an experience that feels true to life. The horror of the scenario comes from the fact you could easily see these events depicted on the news, and this gives the film a believable terror that will undoubtedly keep you away from the land down under. As if the spiders in the toilet weren't bad enough. Number 5. The Devil's Rejects. Rob Zombie's movies are very hit or miss, with some people really liking his style, whereas others finding it overly pretentious and far too gory. Whatever side you fall on, it's impossible to say that he hasn't made an impact as a director. One of the most notorious creations of his are the Firefly family, a unit of serial killers who were introduced in Zombie's debut feature, House of a Thousand Corpses. This movie acts as a direct sequel to those events and sees 3 family members, Baby, Otis and Captain Spaulding, otherwise known as the Devil's Rejects, go on a road trip to escape the vengeful arm of a Texan sheriff. An issue with the film is that it tries to get you on the side of these killers, empathising with them when things don't go their way. Of course, this is tough to do, as not only are they malicious murderers, but the loud and obnoxious antics of Baby, played by Sherry Moon Zombie, makes them rather grating to watch. However, the film is a ton of fun thanks to its simplicity. Rather than throwing a lot of plot your way, you simply watch as these evil figures travel across the country and interact with victims. They do make you feel a little bit complicit, as if you are a backseat Firefly passenger yourself though. Number 4. High Tension. High Tension, also known as Switchblade Romance, is more renowned for its notorious take it how you will twist than the rest of the story. However, it is a gripping and pretty damn gory psychological horror movie that you should definitely check out. It also might make you reconsider your travel plans. It follows the best friend pair of Marie and Alex, who travel together to the latter's parents' house for the weekend. However, things take a drastic and violent turn when a serial killer starts to pursue them. The film is a highlight of the new French extremity movement of the early 2000s, and the gore and weirdly cathartic savagery make it particularly gritty and tough to sit through at times. Without spoiling it, the movie's twist ending was and still is rather divisive, as there are a few leaps in logic that keep it from being as smart as it wants to be. However, it is a must-see for horror fans, as it takes your standard slasher formula and subverts it beyond any and all expectations. Number 3. Road Games. This isn't funny games on wheels. We are returning to the Australian outback, but instead of being victim to a killer, we are out to get one. Road Games is a tense horror thriller that follows Pat Quaid, an American truck driver who travels across Australia. While on a routine trip, he encounters a man in a van, always dodgy, who believes he's butchering women and dumping their bodies along the desolate highway. With the help of a hitchhiker played by the ever-charming and brilliant Jamie Lee Curtis, he sets out to catch the killer red-handed. There is a distinct feeling of vigilantism which makes the film compelling, as you get sucked in by Stacey Keach in the leading role. He is so desperate and determined to catch this killer, and you are equally chomping at the bit to see the mystery unfold. This is further accented by Curtis's Pamela, who is just as wise and tough in her pursuits. Part of what makes this an above-average suspense horror is that it revolves around the pursuit of a villain. It's rare to see a serial killer horror that focuses on the quest for justice, rather than the exploits of a killer. This gives Road Games a Hitchcockian vibe, making it feel a little bit like Rear Window on wheels. Number 2. Duel. Everyone has that fear that an innocent chance encounter could turn ugly, and that's especially true on the road. When you're behind the wheel of a car, you put a lot of trust into other drivers, as any one of them could start ramming into you and your life would be over. It's a lot less fun than when you're playing Mario Kart and you're bashing all your mates to try and win. This is a fear that this movie sought to exploit, and it did so expertly. Duel tells a straightforward story that focuses on David Mann, a salesman driving on a business trip. On this long drive, he happens upon a dirty-looking truck which he overtakes. In response, the unseen truck driver, understandably, sensibly, normally, goes after Mann and stalks and terrorises him with the intent on ending his life. Just let it go. Let it go, man. This movie was the feature-length directorial debut of someone called Steven Spielberg, so it holds quite a large place in cinema's history. His artistic hand helped to make the movie's pacing astounding, as it forces you to constantly look for any opportunity to catch a breath, as this unidentified antagonist relentlessly goes after the lead. It's an intense thrill ride that plays on your roadside paranoia and makes you wonder how safe you truly are on the road. Number 1. Southbound. What is better than one solid road trip story? 5 solid road trip horror stories, of course. Anthology horror movies have always held a soft spot in the hearts of viewers. They give directors a massive chance to dip their toes in different narratives and styles, which makes them incredibly varied and worthwhile experiences. Southbound is a great example of this, as the 5 interlocking segments all play to the idea of dark secrets across a long stretched desert highway. As is often the case with anthology series, the movie tells 5 distinct but interconnected stories. Each one spins the tale of guilty people eventually suffering karmic justice. As a collection of terrifying floating figures watch on. The stories range from demonically infested towns to realistic home invasions, but the core theme of secrecy and regret remains constant. Southbound approaches the narrative in a way different from many horror anthologies. Each of the segments interact, making the stories feel like they're playing out at the same time. This gives the film a sense of cohesiveness that makes the highway itself seem like a demonic presence that ensnares people to confront their deepest secrets. It all concludes in a stylish and satisfying end, with everything that you've just seen thus being put into perspective and delivering one hell of a payoff. And that's our list. What horror movies made you afraid to hit the open road? Let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and swing on by our channel again if you want to catch more creepy content. I've been Tilly, and this has been What Culture. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to keep on looking after yourself, looking after each other, and I'll see you very soon. Until next time.